Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ, and of the grazing livestock. Meaning, وَأَنْشَأَ, and He has also created of the grazing livestock, حَمُولَةً, carriers of burdens, وَفَرْشًا, and also those animals that are too small. The word an'am is the plural of na'am, from the root letters noon, ayn, meen, which is primarily used for a camel. But in the plural form, it doesn't just apply to the camel, but it applies to other animals of livestock as well. And tana'um, ni'mah, is a blessing when a person is in a good state, when a person is enjoying comfort, he has an enjoyable life. And having a camel, having animals of livestock, was a big deal for the Arabs. Because whoever had a camel, his life was comfortable. He had milk, he had a vehicle, he could go get water on it, he could travel, and when he needed food, he could also slaughter the camel and get meat. And after the camel was slaughtered, the skin could also be used. So, وَمِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ, of the grazing livestock, are حَمُولَةً. Hamula is from the root letters ha, mim, lam. Himl, which means to carry a burden. So hamula, you see the waw? The waw? And the tam marbuta, it basically gives the meaning of mubalagha. That ones who carry a lot of haml. They're used for carrying burden. They're used for carrying loads. Just for instance, people have cars. There are different types of cars, different types of vehicles today. Some are used for transportation. Some are used for people to travel in. So hamula are those animals in particular which are used for carrying burden. Which burden? It could be baggage. It could be people as well. Which animals are these? The four-legged animals that are fit to carry loads, such as horses, camels, oxen, even donkey. They're used primarily for what? Carrying loads. They're capable of carrying loads. وَفَرْشًا, and also small animals. Farshan is from the root letters fa, ra, shin, and farsh is basically used for ground, and farshan refers to those animals that are closer to the ground. Why? Because they're too small in size, that are closer to the ground. Why are they called farshan? Because, first of all, they are closer to the ground compared to the bigger animals. And we're only talking about livestock animals because an'am has been used. So for instance, if hamula refers to camels, what would farsh refer to? Sheep, goat, similarly young camels. Because they're closer to the ground compared to the bigger animals. Secondly, it is said that they're called farshan. Why? Because they cannot be ridden. You can't ride them. You can't ride them because of their size. Rather, their milk and their meat is consumed. So for instance, young camels, sheep, goats, all of them, you don't ride them, but what do you use of them? Their milk, their meat, etc. Thirdly, it is said they're called farshan. Why? Because they are slaughtered while they are laid on the ground. Whereas the hamula animals, because they're so big, you can't really slaughter them by putting them on the ground. If you do, it would be impossible. They're too big for people to control. So, farshan are like sheep, goats. You put them on the ground, you lay them on the ground, and then you slaughter them. Fourthly, it is also said that they're called farshan because their skin is used as a floor spread in particular. Different animals, their skin can be used for different purposes. But these animals in particular, their skin is used for floor spread. So there are hamula and there are also farshan. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a lot of variety even in the an'am, even in the grazing livestock animals. Kulu, eat. Meaning the reason for which Allah created these animals is for you to take benefit from them. Some you ride on, some you use only for eating. So eat from them. Don't make eating them haram on yourselves. What have the mushrikeen of Makkah done? That if there were some animals, they would make them haram on themselves. They would make them haram on the women, or they would make them haram on everybody. So kulu, eat. مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ, from what Allah has provided you. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا, and do not follow خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ, the footsteps of Shaitan. Why? Because إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ, he is to you an open enemy. What are the footsteps of Shaitan referring to over here? In making what Allah has made permissible, haram on yourself. When Allah has made all these animals halal for you to use them, for you to use them for carrying loads, or for you to eat them, for you to milk them, then benefit from them. And do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. Because Shaitan is your enemy, and he does not want you to benefit from these animals. Which is why, what had the mushrikeen done? Some animals, they would not bear load on them. Some animals, they would not sit on. Some animals, they would not eat. Some animals, they would not milk. Why? Because they were dedicated to the gods only. This is following the footsteps of Shaitan. Don't follow them because he is an open enemy to you. You see, some enemies, they don't show their enmity. Isn't it? They're hidden. And you don't know about them. And because of that, you're at risk. Because you don't know who they really are, if they're really your enemy or not. But someone who has clearly expressed their enmity, clearly expressed, is there any doubt about their enmity? No. So he is an open enemy to you because he has clearly expressed his enmity to you. So be on the watch. Be alert. What do we learn from this ayah? First of all, we learn from this ayah about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy towards His slaves, that He has created various types of animals as well. And He hasn't just created a variety of the animals, but these animals are multi-purpose. You can ride them, you can eat them, you can milk them, you can use their skin. They're multi-purpose. This is a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We can benefit from their milk, we can benefit from their meat, we can benefit from their physical capabilities. They're even used for farming. So, all of this is what? An expression of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy upon His people. In Surah Al-Nahl, ayah number 80, we learn وَمِنْ أَوْصَافِهَا وَأَوْبَارِهَا وَأَشْعَارِهَا أَسَاسًا وَمَتَاعًا إِلَى حِينٍ. And of their wool, meaning the wool of these an'am, and their fur, and their hair, are furnishings and articles of convenience, comfort for a while. All of these Allah has made for you, multi-purpose animals, for you to take various benefits from. And if a person does not use them, and instead he dedicates them to idols, then he's not fulfilling the purpose for which these animals were created. Allah created these animals for us. He created these animals for us. If a person dedicates them to idols and he makes them haram upon himself, then what is he doing? He is not fulfilling the purpose for which these animals were created. It's not possible that so many of these animals, they were just created so that they graze and they die, and that's it. That human beings serve them. They keep them in their farms, they look after them. Because if they're left in the wild, they're too vulnerable. They can't take care of themselves, and if human beings maintain them, look after them, and they don't benefit from them at all. This does not make sense. A sound mind cannot accept it. Allah created these animals for us. And it's not our right that we make some of them haram on ourselves. Secondly, we learn from this ayah that of the plots of Shaitan is that he inspires people to make halal haram and haram halal. This is of the plots of Shaitan. This is of his enmity. If a person has an enemy, does his enemy want him to benefit from what he has? No. So this is Shaitan's plot. This is out of his enmity, that he inspires people that they should make halal haram and haram halal. What do some people do? They don't eat meat, saying it's against animal rights. They think that slaughtering animals is barbaric and it's inhumane. It's very unjust. Let these animals live. Don't be so cruel. But the fact is that Allah has placed a lot of benefit in these animals for us. Aren't they a source of protein? They are. You get a lot of benefit from these animals. They're rich in iron, they're rich in protein, and it's crucial for the development of human body. And if a person says, no, I'm not going to eat it, who is he harming? Himself. Who's going to be happy? His enemy. Al-mu'minu al-qawi أحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف وفي كل خير. That the strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer. Yes, strength over here means the strength of Iman, but it also means physical strength. Because a person who is physically strong, he is capable of doing more. He is capable of doing jihad. He is capable of staying awake at night. Someone who is low in iron, someone who is not that strong, doesn't have that much energy, they can barely sit through and do their lesson. We learned in Surah Fatir, ayah number 6, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوًّا فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًّا. Indeed, Shaitan is an enemy to you, so take him as an enemy. Then we also learned from this ayah about the permissibility of eating all an'am. All the an'am. As we learned earlier, أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ بَهِيمَةُ الْأَنْعَامِ. Permissibility of eating all an'am, except for those that are specified otherwise, that they're not permissible. So all the an'am, they are permissible for us to eat, regardless of their size, regardless of their gait, meaning how they walk, how they run, regardless of the type of work they are capable of doing. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here, kulu, eat. Kulu mimma razaqakumullahu. Even if they're used primarily for transportation, even if they're used primarily for riding, still they are permissible for you. So, we learn from this that generally all an'am are permissible except for those that are specified otherwise. And this shows to us that even horses, they are permissible. Horses, they are permissible. According to some, they're not permissible, but according to majority of the scholars, horses are permissible. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says over here, kulu. And there are sound narrations that tell us, that show to us that eating horses is permissible. We learned that Jabir ibn Abdullah, he said that on the day of Khaybar, the Prophet ﷺ forbade eating the flesh of domestic donkeys, but he granted a concession with regard to horses. And this is in Bukhari. That he permitted eating horses, but he forbade eating what? Domestic donkeys. So yes, donkeys, they also fall in an'am, but they're not permissible, as I mentioned to you, unless they are stated otherwise. Similarly, Asma bint Abi Bakr, she said that at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we slaughtered a horse and we ate it. Again, this is in Bukhari and Muslim. And Jabir radiallahu anhu, he said, we traveled with the Prophet ﷺ and we used to eat the flesh of horses and drink their milk. And there are other scholars, for instance, Imam Abu Hanifa, and some other scholars who say that eating horse meat is makruh. It is not liked, it is makruh. And they quote the ayah of the Quran, which is in Surah Al-Nahl, ayah number 8, that, and He has created horses, wal-khayla wal-bighala, for you to ride and as an adornment. So he says that the purpose of their creation is that they are for us to ride. They're not for us to eat. However, just because one function is mentioned does not mean other functions are not permissible. Isn't it? One function is mentioned over there in that ayah. That does not mean that other usages are not permissible. They are permissible. Why? Because of this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, kulu, eat them. So generally, all of them are permissible, except if they are stated otherwise. So what do we learn? That only domestic donkeys, they are not permissible for us to eat. There is another hadith, which is narrated by Khalid ibn Walid, in which it has been said that the Prophet ﷺ forbade the flesh of horses, mules and donkeys, and every wild animal that has fangs. However, this hadith is weak. This hadith is weak. Remember that, because you might learn of this hadith, but remember that this is weak. So, when it comes to all an'am, they are permissible except if they are stated otherwise. Remember, I said an'am. Okay? Not all animals. Only grazing livestock. Okay? Grazing livestock. Animals that graze. Pigs are also animals that graze, but they're not permissible. Why? Specified that they're haram. Similarly, donkeys. Specified they're haram. But remember that wild donkeys, they are permissible. Domesticated donkeys are not permissible, but wild donkeys are permissible. Okay? So for instance, a zebra, it's very similar to a donkey, isn't it? But it's permissible. We learned that Abu Qatada, he hunted an animal which I don't know how to pronounce the name, it's Onager, or Allahu A'lam how you say it, Onager. And he brought a piece of it to the Prophet ﷺ, and he ate some of it. And he said to his companions, it is halal, eat it. And it's basically a wild donkey. It's very similar to a normal donkey. It just has something like a mane that goes all over its back. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created so much variety, but we limit ourselves to chicken and beef. Isn't it? And sometimes only chicken. We won't cook anything but chicken. We won't eat anything but chicken, even if there is an option. But there's so much variety. Okay. ثمانية أزواج. They are 8 mates. Who? The an'am. 8 mates. It is said that ثمانية أزواج, because you see it begins with a fatha, right? ثمانية. What does it mean? It's a mansoob. Why is it mansoob? Different reasons have been given. First of all, it has been said, because it is the substitute, it is the badal of وَمِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ حَمُولَةً وَفَرْشًا. That of the an'am, they are hamula and farshan. What are the an'am? They are ثمانية أزواج. They are these 8 mates. Others have said that ثمانية أزواج, this is an object of kulu. That kulu, eat what? What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you. And what are they? ثمانية أزواج. Others have said that ثمانية أزواج is the object of a verb that is not mentioned over here. And what is that verb? That ansha'a, that he produced. He produced 8 pairs. The word azwaj is a plural of zawj. And what does zawj mean? One of a pair. In living beings, it refers to either male or female. So for example, a husband is a zawj. A wife is a zawj. Spouse, partner. And in non-living beings, it refers to what? Those 2 things that complement each other. Even if they don't have genders. Which obviously they won't because they're non-living. So for example, a pair of socks, you don't say this one is female and the other is male. They're a pair. They complete the pair. They complement one another. You say left and right. But even then you don't differentiate between socks. Do you? Do you write this is the right one, this is the left one? No. Similarly, night and day. Sun and moon. They complete a set. So ثمانية أزواج over here, because it is living beings, it refers to male and female. What are these 8 pairs? Meaning 8 animals that are in sets. What are they? مِنَ الضَّأْنِ إِثْنَيْنِ. From the sheep, 2. Of the sheep, there are 2. الضَّأْن is the plural of ضَائِن. It's the plural of ضَائِن. How will you write ضَائِن? ضاد alif. And you know how you write ba? You make a loop. You make the same thing and you connect it with a noon. And on the loop, what do you write? A small hamza. Just think of it as you're writing ضَابِن. Don't put a dot under the ba, instead put a hamza. ضَائِن. And ضَائِن is used for sheep or ram, those animals that have wool on them. Small animals that have wool on them. So min al-dha'ni, there are ithnayn, meaning 1 male and 1 female. Wa min al-ma'zi, and from the goat, ithnayni, 2. Which 2? 1 male and the other female. And ma'z is the plural of ma'iz. You may have heard of the name ma'iz. Ma'iz means goat. The Arabs, they named people after animals as well. Like for example, Asad. What does Asad mean? Lion. So, wa min al-ma'zi, ithnayni. Of goats, there are 2, meaning 1 male and 1 female. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala questions. قُلْ say, أَذَّكَرَيْنِ حَرَّمَ. Did he make unlawful the 2 males? أَمِ الْأُنْثَيَيْنِ, or the 2 females? أَذَّكَرَيْنِ is a combination of 2 hamzas. One hamza is the hamzatul istifham. One hamza is hamzatul istifham. So one hamza is of hamzatul istifham, which is the which is why we translate it as did. And the other hamza is of lam ta'rif, al-dhakaraini. The other hamza is of lam ta'rif, al-dhakaraini. And that hamza is which one? Is it hamzatul asl or wasl? Wasl. Why? Because you don't pronounce it separately. When it's being connected with the previous word, you don't pronounce it separately. But when it comes like this, that a hamzatul istifham comes before hamzatul wasl, then there are two ways of reading it. There are two ways of reading it. The first way is to read it with a mad. You just put one alif and you put a mad on it. So you read it as adh-dhakarayni. You understand? Adh-dhakarayni. Allahu. Adh-dhakarayni. The other way of reading it is of tasheel. Ta, sin, ha, ya, lam. Tasheel. And what does it mean? That you read it as adh-dhakarayni. Not but not a. Similarly, in the Quran we learn a'jamiyun. Not a'jami. How do you read it? A'jamiyun. Because still it's wasl. And because you're connecting it with the previous, that's why you will read as a'jamiyun. Adh-dhakarayni. So over here, how are we reading it? With the mad. Adh-dhakarayni. Now why is it made into the mad? For different reasons. Some have said, for the purpose of istifham, to make the istifham very strong, to make it very forceful. Tell me, adh-dhakarayni harrama? Adh-dhakarayni harrama? Isn't it very forceful? It's very forceful. Similarly, for the purpose of tahdeed, for warning and threat. Adh-dhakarayni? Similarly, for the purpose of inkar, negation. It's not possible. Adh-dhakarayni? So it adds a lot of shidda in the kalam. Intensity in the kalam. It gives tahdeed, warning. It really makes the istifham strong and forceful. And it also gives a sense of negation. It's impossible. That adh-dhakarayni harrama, did Allah forbid the two males? The two males of which ones? The da'n and the mars. Because the Arabs, they had made either the male haram or the female haram. So Allah says, of the goat and the sheep, did Allah forbid the males? No. Or did He forbid the two females? Meaning the female goat and the female sheep? No. Amma, or what? Ishtamalat alayhi, it comprised of it, arhamul unsayayn, the wombs of the two females. Ishtamalat from the root letters, sheen, mim, lam. Shumul. What does it mean? To contain, to comprise. So ishtamalat, it comprised, it contained, it consisted. And arham is a plural of rahm, rahim. And what does it mean? The womb, the uterus, where the baby is. Or did He forbid that which is in the wombs of the two females? And what is that? The fetus, the child, the kid. So, if you look at it, any animal, there are three things. The male, the female, or the child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala questions. Allah has made all of them permissible. What evidence do you have that He forbade either the male, or the female, or the child? What evidence do you have? Nabbi'uni, inform me, bi'ilmin, with some knowledge, meaning with some evidence, in kuntum sadiqeen, if you're truthful in this claim of yours. Meaning, from where did this tahrim come from? Where did you get this evidence from? That the child is forbidden, or the male is forbidden, or the female is forbidden. It's not forbidden. Because if you think of it, if a particular animal is halal, it's not possible that the male would be haram of it, or the child would be haram of it. It's not possible. If one particular type is halal, all of its different types are permissible. Isn't it? All of them are permissible because they are of one another. They share characteristics. They're very similar in nature. So just on the basis of maleness, or the basis of being feminine, or the basis of age or size, don't make haram or halal. You have to have some evidence. We learn in ayah number 139, earlier in Surah Al-Anam, that وَقَالُوا مَا فِي بُطُونِ هَذِهِ الْأَنْعَامِ خَالِصَةٌ لِذُكُورِنَا وَمُحَرَّمٌ عَلَى أَزْوَاجِنَا وَإِنْ يَكُنْ مَيْتَةٌ فَهُمْ فِيهِ شُرَكَاء. So they had made what was in the womb, meaning the child, permissible only for the males. And if it was born dead, then it was permissible for the females. So what do we learn from this ayah? That it is not permissible for anyone to make something halal or haram out of his own desire. Out of his own desire. Now when it comes to personal choice, when it comes to food allergies, that's a completely different case. But even then, you don't say this is haram. You don't say this is haram. No, it is still halal. You, out of your personal choice, personal preference, you're not eating it. because your body cannot tolerate it or whatever. But don't declare it to be halal or haram. Because this authority of making something halal or haram was not even given to the Prophet ﷺ. It was only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.